My sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. This is a podcast that I, the stand-up comedian, my name is Virginia Jones, do with my sister, who's a therapist.
Hello, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My sister is stand-up comedian sensation, Virginia Jones.
Coming up on my 18th year of being almost completely non-famous. It's a good anniversary to celebrate.
Life on the F list.
I want to open up with thanks for everybody who's been rating us and leaving nice comments. It is great to hear from some people we don't even know.
Yeah, it's incredible. Thank you for your many emails as well.
We really, really appreciate it. And we love being in touch with you. This week, it's my sister, licensed marriage and family therapist Laura Ryan's turn to provide the topic. And what are we talking about?
Okay, so this week's topic was inspired by Nicole Byer on her wonderful podcast, Why Won't You Date Me? Why Won't You Date Me? Why Won't You Date Me? She's discussing her dating history, and I'm really getting the sense that she has an anxious attachment style. So I decided that we would discuss attachment theory today. So Virginia, tell me what you know about attachment theory.
Attachment theory is one of my favorite topics. I have bored every woman in my life with it. And I discovered about attachment theory, through my sister, licensed marriage and family therapist, Laura Ryan. But I kind of ran across it because I kept having the same experience in relationships. I would be super into someone and then just not, and found myself breaking up with people a lot. What is happening? Why are these people so interesting? And then there's something wrong with them and I don't want it anymore.
And I just suddenly feel like I don't even like them. Yeah, you got the ick a lot. So attachment, I'm not even sure where to start. There's so much to say about it, but we'll start with what I learned in school. So attachment theory comes from imprinting theory. Are you familiar with imprinting theory?
That's like when a baby duck imprints on a person and thinks it's his mother, right?
Exactly. So Konrad Lorenz did imprinting studies with goslings. That was his assessment that attachment is something that all creatures need to survive. It's a survival strategy.
It's how you know you're with someone safe or you're with your people.
Right. Also, Harlow was a person we talked about in school, and we talked about his monkey study, actually quite awful study on baby monkeys. He did a study where he took their mothers away, and he offered them the option of a cloth mother or a wire mother. So you could either have a soft, cozy kind of thing you could sit in, it was warm, or you could have this horrible wire thing that was not warm, was very cold, but it did offer sustenance.
Oh, God.
And the babies chose the soft mother. They chose the cloth mother.
You know, these monkeys teach us that finding your person, finding your mother is more important than food.
All of our relationships starts with our primary caregivers. So when you're raised by a wire monkey, or when you're raised by an inconsistent person, like somebody maybe who has a drug addiction problem or an undiagnosed mental health issue, someone who's inconsistent, they might be super nurturing, but you can't rely on it. So Saul Mcleod, PhD, wrote an article, Attachment Theory in Psychology. What Saul says is the attachment bond isn't coincidental. It's primary to ensure the survival of the vulnerable infant, requiring the constant presence of a caregiver. And that came from Bowlby's studies. Attachment styles refer to the particular way in which an individual relates to other people. The style of attachment is formed at the very beginning of life, and once established, it is a style that stays with you and plays out today in how you relate to intimate relationships and how you parent your children. The concept involves one's confidence in the ability of the attachment figure for use as a secure base from which one can freely explore the world when not in distress, and a safe haven from which one can seek support, protection, and comfort in times of distress. So ideally, you have a parent who is healthy, balanced, consistent. And in that case, you're going to develop what we call a secure attachment.
You trust that your partner or your family member, your protector is going to be around. They're going to be dependable, and you can just be normal. You can just be yourself. Yes.
Right. If you have a secure attachment to a parent, what that means is, there's just a sense that no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening, you are consistent and you can rely on the world. So Bowlby describes secure attachment as the capacity to connect well and securely in relationships with others, while also having the capacity for autonomous action as situationally appropriate. Secure attachment is characterized by trust, an adaptive response to being abandoned, and the belief that one is worthy of love. Have you ever met anyone like that?
Not that many. Sometimes you do meet a secure person. They're not just running around in circles trying to either attract people or shoo them away. And you think, wow, what's their deal?
What's their deal? Maybe their mom was super consistent. Maybe their dad was home. Maybe they knew where their meals were coming from. An infant with a secure attachment style, the way we can tell, is that they are actively seeking and maintaining proximity with their mother. The infant may or may not be friendly with a stranger, but always shows more interest in interacting with their mother than a stranger. Additionally, in the same situations that they were tested, infants tended to be slightly distressed, but the infant rarely cried. So in Bowlby's studies, he took a young baby, like a toddler, and put them in a room by themselves, and a stranger would come in the room, interact with the baby, the stranger would leave, and they would be reunited with their mom. In this study, infants who were securely attached to their mothers showed less anxiousness, more positive attitudes towards their relationship, and believed in their mother's responsiveness towards their needs.
So, and from what I understand, when these kids grow up, they tend to have long relationships, fruitful relationships, they have good friendships. They just have longer relationships than maybe people with the other two. And dating, what you learn is that it's hard to find this person because they tend to be like, they're just in relationships.
The secure folks are tough to pair off with when you're dating, especially after 40, because they're married and they're in successful, healthy relationships. So they are not available.
What you have to do is either wait for their spouses to die or do something to make that come about.
It's really just a simple decision. It's easy. It's almost effortless. You know who's in the dating pool a whole bunch are avoidant folks. And why do you think that might be, Virginia?
Avoidants tend to be in the dating pool because no matter how good or worthwhile they think their partner is at first, they think, well, surely there's somebody better out there for me. And so they're always looking over their partner's shoulder to see who else is in the room.
Right. And so avoidant attachment style, it's not a diagnosis. It's a coping strategy. And it emerges from inconsistent care from a parent. And so basically these kids, these babies and children between birth and 5, find that their parent or parents are unreliable. And so as a result, they decide, I'm going to take my toys and I'm going to go play elsewhere because I cannot rely on you.
Right. Laura tells me this all the time when I say, well, I didn't really like her, but I'm an avoidant. And she says, well, this is not who you are. This is not
a permanent condition.
Right. This is just how you learn to deal with the world. But the sad thing is that everything that I thought was internal and inborn about myself as a kid, I'm like, well, this is just how I am. That's how I roll. Like, love it or leave it. It's all trauma response.
Hyper independence, the feeling that I don't need anybody. It's because when you're 2 and you're not sure what's going to happen and you're trying to find a way to survive, you develop this coping strategy.
Just real quickly, avoidance, it's not that we don't pursue people. We 100% do. On the front end, you overvalue people, pursue. But then when they are interested back, that can feel very scary. And so you leave.
From what I've heard, my clients, it can feel sort of oppressive. It feels like too much. Beware of attachment stereotyping. A lot of times we tend to brush men with the avoidant brush, and that's not fair. By dividing attachment behavior along gender lines, we fall into this common trap of equating avoidance with masculinity. Although you can see why that would be a line we draw.
There's a lot of stereotypes with avoidance, the love them and leave F boys. These are avoidant strategies and like what avoidance looks like.
Right. And they're also F girls. They're everywhere.
A friend of mine ended a marriage, and the very first woman, so like he'd married very young and didn't have just a ton of dating experience. And the very first woman he got in a relationship with after his marriage was avoidant. He didn't know whether to poop or go sailing. He'd never seen this. Right. And he was so puzzled by it.
Because it's bizarre, to a non-avoidant person, the behavior doesn't make any sense. It's very strange.
Right. He's like, I really thought we liked each other. And then she started things like, well, why can't we just keep things simple? And he's like, well, this being in love is simple. Like, it's not complicated.
It doesn't have to be complicated, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it. The book Attached by Amir, Levine, and Rachel Heller, The New Science of Adult Attachment, How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. I gave this to my sister, Virginia, for Christmas.
I enjoyed it very much, and I have given that book to at least 3 people that I've seen on one side or another of these issues.
I remember when I was introduced to it, I have a lot of clients who are therapists, and this one client said, you have to read this book because it's sort of like a cheat code. You just start talking to people, and as soon as you start to see it through this lens, everything makes sense. It's just like as soon as I started understanding that I and all of my clients had ADHD, everything made sense. And all my friends and everyone I meet. Research finds that there are many men who are far from being avoidant. They communicate freely, are loving and affectionate, do not retreat during conflict, and are consistently there for their partners, i.e., they are secure.
I think the first half of your life sometimes is coming up with coping strategies to work around your trauma. And if you're lucky, the second half of your life is actually trying to heal that trauma. The first half is just like putting up walls and shields to protect yourself. But if you're lucky enough to recognize that, then you can actually try to work on it and become a more functioning human being, which I have done 25% of the work.
That's a good metric. Let's shoot for 50. Here are some strategies that avoidants enjoy doing. Well, they don't enjoy it. They do it unconsciously. It's called deactivating strategies. So when it gets to a point where it feels like this relationship, this person, this whatever is too much, you start mistaking self-reliance for independence, inflating your own importance and self-esteem while putting your partner down, seeing only the negative in your partner, ignoring the positive, assuming malicious intent in your partner's actions, disregarding their emotional cues, yearning for a phantom ex. This is a favorite of many avoidants.
Love to do this.
Yes. It's taking that old relationship that did not work, but immediately forgetting all of the negative parts of that relationship and only remembering the positives so that you can create more space between you and your current partner.
Right. When I'm in the deactivation phase, I will either fantasize about a previous partner and how great they were, or fantasize about a future partner, someone I just met and how great they will be. A fantasy that I haven't, like a person that I haven't met, but I'm like, I know there's going to be someone who's a better match for this than this a-hole.
Right, exactly. So fantasizing about the one is another deactivating strategy, and repressing loving feelings and emotions toward your partner.
The problem is that if one does this, it's so complete, you don't know you're doing it. It's like you've taken that love and you've hidden it behind your back and you think it's just gone.
Well, if I'm doing things like fantasizing about having sex with other people, reminding myself that I'd be better off on my own, or telling myself that my partner is so needy and pathetic, it is going to make it feel like I don't love them. And I mean, it is going to taint everything I have. It's kind of like, I remember talking to an ex-partner about our relationship. And I said, it's like having the most wonderful Godiva chocolate, but every 6th or 12th or 25th bite is a rat turd. So it sort of sours the whole relationship and makes it all feel bad. So if I start really thinking about you through this lens of disdain and, just being icked out, I will not love you.
Just really counting those rat turds.
Avoidants, when they deactivate, become withdrawn. They feel misunderstood. They're frustrated. They're resentful. They're angry. They're hostile. They're aloof. They feel unappreciated and they feel empty. When you're dating this with that poor soul that you knew, the reason why they ran into an avoidant is because statistically, and I found out this in the book, there's so many more avoidants on the app because they have already so detached from the last relationship that they're just jumping in ready for something new.
The third kind of personality type that we're going to hit, like that's the other half of the people who are on the dating scene. So that's why dating, especially later in life, is so challenging, because everyone is either an avoidant or an anxious person. And an avoidant and anxious person have a very hard time forming a bond, and two avoidants will never form a bond.
Well, they will. It's going to be very loose and it's going to be short-lived, because when nobody's paying to the relationship, when everyone's just sort of sitting in their own corner, the relationship dies.
Right. Like there's the thing when you're in a new relationship and you don't feel like the other partner is like communicating enough or leaning in enough. And then sometimes like I'll like lean back and see if they lean forward. If it's another avoidant, we'll both just lean back.
And then it'll just be gone. It'll be over. Some common avoidant thoughts are overgeneralizations. She's taking over my life. He's taking over my life. I can't take it anymore. I have to do everything their way. The price is too high. I need to get out of here. I feel suffocated. If this person really was the one, this sort of thing would never happen. When I was with my phantom ex, this never would have happened. This person is out there to annoy me. It's so obvious. They just want to tie me down. This isn't true love. I remember dating an avoidant, and I remember him saying to me, "You're trying to give me the lockdown." And I said, "No, I'm telling you that I'm not comfortable having unprotected sex with someone who's having unprotected sex with other people."
Them's just facts.
Right.
We've talked about it before, the very toxic idea that if this was my perfect relationship,
and we would totally understand each other on every level and everything would just be perfect all the time.
I am still looking for that person. So if you think you're them,
prepare to be disappointed. Anxious attachment style, we have arrived at it for the same reason that avoidants have arrived at it. Anxious folks come from inconsistent family patterns, again, for all the reasons I mentioned before. But instead of taking your toys and running away, you cling to your caregivers. You try to make them happy. You try to appease them. You try to make them okay. And so that's where the anxious attachment style comes in.
This is the stage 5 clinger, the overly attached girlfriend, like all of these like memes and ideas come from this idea of someone who sadly just really wants to please you.
Right. The underlying thing is closeness and intimacy. And so a lot of really codependent folks are also very anxious because they're trying to bend themselves into whatever shape you need so that you'll love them and care about them. And the sad thing is that the anxious folks almost always attach to avoidance.
Right. And the thing is, if someone loves you because you have become their mirror and you're doing everything they're doing, they don't love you anyway.
Right. They don't love you for who you are. They love you for the fake version of yourself.
Right. Because they don't know you.
So anxious people are very sensitive to any sign of rejection. They have a very vigilant attachment system. So, if you are finding yourself looking at the way that person moved their eyebrow and suddenly feeling fearful, you might have anxious attachment style. Jeff Foxworthy, comic genius of our times. You might be a redneck. You might be an anxious. You might be an avoidant. You might be secure.
If you find that you have restocked your house with all the foods your partner likes, it might be an anxious attachment.
If you find yourself needing to be reassured and feeling loved, you might have an anxious attachment style.
If you're always hunting around looking for the next partner that's going to be better than your old partner, you might be an avoidant.
If you find that you need to know exactly where you stand in that relationship, you might have an anxious attachment style.
The other options are, of course, like there's mixed. There's people who are anxious avoidants. They'll be avoidant until they meet someone who is more avoidant, and then they'll flip. Possibly how this topic came up is I recognized in my previous self that I'm even turned off by anxious people who want to be friends. Like,
oh yeah, it's going to dictate. It dictates all your relationships. It's not just romantic. It's just the most evident in your romantic relationships. So Nicole Byer, the reason why I was thinking about her is she was talking to her friend on her podcast, Why Won't You Date Me? And she was talking about how she had dated a new person. And while they were sitting at dinner, the person was having difficulty looking at the menu because Nicole Byer had sort of twisted her whole body on top of that person. And that's a good sign that you have an anxious attachment style when you are really craving physical closeness. So yeah, she had pushed this man into a corner. He could not look at a menu because she had entwined her body to his.
And then the avoidant version of that is that once you started deactivating someone, their touch feels like razors slicing your flesh.
If you're anxious, yeah, you're sensitive, you want closeness, you want intimacy. So an anxious person is looking for basically unbreakable consistency. They want closeness, they want intimacy. They sometimes even want physical closeness, like Nicole Byer. They want to know everything about the other person at all times because they don't feel safe. Right. So what they need is validation. What they need is a sense that they have a safe harbor in their relationships and they can come off as clingy and needy.
And they also want to know that their partner would still love them if they were a worm.
They want constant reassurance and validation. They want to know that this is it. So you can determine if you're an anxious person. I find for me, the hardest part for me is the beginning of a new relationship, especially, when I have met gentlemen on the interwebs, they're not writing me back quickly. They seemed excited at first and now they feel like they're withdrawing. And it's very scary and confusing. And you're just looking for someone to say, yes, I choose you. This is it. I'm not going to leave you, which can really mess with you. Like, for example, in my last relationship, my partner understood this about me. And his last gift to me a month before he broke up with me was a partner's journal. And he said, I got the 5-year one because I wanted you to know I'm really here for you.
But then that wasn't true at all.
Right. Which made me decide to abandon this whole relationship thing altogether.
So do you consider yourself an anxious attachment person?
1,000%. Yeah. I need reassurance. So you need to be reassured. You need to feel loved. You need to know exactly where you stand in your relationships. You need comfort, being able to tell people how you feel very early on. You need consistency. You need stability.
So our relationship is a little different because we're sisters and I can't really get rid of you. But in friendships, how I feel when I meet an anxious person, it's happened a couple of times where it's a ridiculous thing to think, but someone will be so nice to me and really try to cater to me. And it just feels like their touch is burning my flesh. They'll ask something of me that it is a lot more than I would do because they're anxious and they assume that everyone else is anxious. Like someone I barely know says, and I'm going to throw a party at your house. I'm like, are you? It's very uncomfortable when someone approaches you with a completely different pattern and worldview.
And a different trauma response. When I meet another anxious person, it's incredible. Like I remember meeting this friend at a party and we just couldn't, we were finishing each other's sentences and, immediately she was adding me on all the social medias. She was texting, she was sending pictures. It's such a relief for me when that happens.
I know I'm safe with this person because look how excited they are to be with me.
Well, and you're looking for signals, right? You're looking for approval. You're just looking for can I trust this person? And I think, honestly, I am anxious, but I think I'm also mixed. I feel like for me, as soon as I discover or determine that the person is not going to be consistent, then I immediately withdraw.
I don't think that's necessarily avoidant, though. That's an anxious person who is, for once, protecting themselves.
Yeah, but I remember my sister gave me this really horrible dating advice at one point. She said, well, you just have to not invest in people. You got to date a lot of people. You got to really just don't tell them anything. Don't do anything. Don't commit to anything and just be really aloof and like that. And I said, that's impossible, one. And number two, if I approach the person in that way, they're going to think that's who I am. And that is not who I am at all.
I mean, I just think that if you never put someone's name in your phone, it really keeps them on their toes to be like, they're texting someone they've dated for 6 months and you go, who is this? They want to achieve.
Yeah, it's great. It's a really healthy way to approach relationships. What is the strategy for getting better? This is not like a tumor, it's a series of choices we make. And yes, it does have to do with early programming and trauma. So how do we overcome it?
Yeah, the avoidant is the person who didn't text back because they just got really busy at work. And a person who you try to make plans with and they say, yeah, maybe. The anxious person is the person who will drop everything for you.
Always available.
Always available. Too available.
I would say always available, not necessarily too available.
And the secure person is the person who is honest, says that works for me, that doesn't work for me, who hits this magical middle ground.
Someone who's really clear. Some of the ways to tell if someone is secure is they are available. They do not interfere, so they don't overstep. If something is your problem, they let it be your problem. They don't try to come in and fix it. They act encouragingly. They communicate effectively, and you know where you stand with them.
How do you start to address the problem? For me, finding out what the problem was a huge step. And when I'm doing something really avoidant, I have some visibility to it. Doesn't come up in me.
It still keeps happening, but you're paying attention to it, right?
I'm paying attention, and I'm not necessarily making the jump that I ordinarily would say, well, obviously this is over, I'm going to go.
I think the reason that a lot of people who have either avoidant or avoid securely attached people is because it feels boring, because there's not an emotional roller coaster that you're getting addicted to with these highs and lows all the time.
That's what makes an anxious plus attachment matchup so kind of deadly.
Well, there's this push-pull all the time.
Right.
It feels exciting, right?
I did have a friend was an anxious person in a relationship with an avoidant person, and she would not hear from him. It's that intermittent reward thing. She would not hear from him in days. And then when she did hear something, she would just be like it was a high.
Well, because you've been surviving off of crumbs from the table, right? And then suddenly you're getting a feast. Are you up, text?
Exactly. And it was very sad because he had been nothing but transparent with her that he didn't want to date her, that he enjoyed her company, but he wasn't available for a relationship. And she just kept throwing herself at the wall. Eventually, he blocked her on all social media, and she was so sad about it. But I'm like, this is a gift.
Right. I can't obsessively check, my social medias, look and see, was that a woman? Like, I remember when the last person dumped me, that was kind of my last bastion. I blocked him on almost everything except one social media platform. And I found myself like, oh, he's taking pictures in the woods. I'm sure he's camping with a woman. And then I was like, you know what? This is getting too weird. I have to stop.
A good sick thought is like, if you are stalking someone on the social medias and there's like a really stunning picture of them where they look very handsome, you have to think to yourself, who took that picture?
Who got the angles right? And why do they look like they're dressed up for a really fancy date, but they're just alone? That's another sign that you're an avoidant. If you post all of your photos by yourself, you never mention your partner to anyone and never mention your relationship status on social media, chances are good. I had that with two men. I had two men in a row who would not claim me on the internet. And I really struggled with that. And actually, we were talking about early stage dating. I met this man and he seemed really great. We had a great conversation for like a solid 2 weeks, I think. And I was like, okay, so when's he going to ask me on a date? And then he just disappeared for like a month. And he claimed, got busy with work, family, commitments, yada, yada, yada. And that should have been it for me because he came in hot, excited, we're doing this. And then I could just see he was doing all the deactivating strategies. And then he just completely dumped me out of hand over the phone, which was great.
And this is something I've learned. When someone does that to you once, lose their number, like bury it, like dig a little hole and put it in the ground because it's going to happen again and again. It's not coincidence. And there's another phrase on TikTok we see a lot. If he wanted to, he would.
Absolutely. Yes. And what I've determined is when someone is securely attached, they are stable, it feels comfortable, they feel safe, they are consistent, they're reliable, you're not getting mixed messages. And if you are distressed, they are able to reassure you.
Avoidants also love long distance relationships.
LDRs, it's a favorite.
If you're getting like a real passionate play from someone who lives somewhere else, please know that their ability to have their own lives while maintaining a pretend relationship with you might be a motivator.
Right. Exactly.
So what is your advice on healing if you are an anxious attachment person?
I would say keep your eyes and ears open, breathe, don't react, just take a minute, right? So when I was dating people back in the olden times, I would find that I would feel very, insecure at different moments, usually in the talking phase. Like by the time I get to a relationship, I feel pretty good. But it's the talking phase that really just unnerves me. If somebody's waiting too long to text me back, and unlike, you also have to ask yourself, is this a normal amount of time that a person would do? If it's been a couple hours is fine. A couple days, like that's more of a problem. So I think it's learning how to self-soothe, leaning on the relationships in your life that you know are going to be there for you. So knowing that like chances are, I mean, statistically, this is not going to work out with anybody. So, focusing on the relationships that you can rely on and, getting validation from those folks.
The thing that's the same is recognizing when you're doing something anxious.
And I think also not mistaking the crazy chemical reactions that you have at the beginning of a relationship for love. Hollywood, I think, if you think about it, most of those scripts were written by men. And I think a lot of men are avoiding it. So they're looking for this cool, effortless woman who's just going to sweep them off their feet. I remember reading so many freaking profiles where a man would say, not looking for a relationship, but maybe for the right person. And that's an immediate swipe left.
Like, what are you looking for someone to prove to you? I've mentioned this person before, but I had a friend who was dating a lot of women and he's like, none of them seem to feel right. I'm like, well, you're treating us all like tricks and hoes. He was seeking this like one person who was going to be everything he wanted.
Well, again, that's the one strategy, right? That's part of the avoidance. I think the trick for both avoidance and anxious folks is date securely attached people. And if you can't find one, don't date.
That's interesting for everybody. How can you tell? We've talked a little bit about what secure looks like. From the outside, how can you tell you're dating a secure attached person?
It feels boring. They're completely reliable. They're consistent. They communicate well. They're honest.
They show up. When they say they're going to show up, they call you when they say they'll call.
Right. Exactly. And it's super boring.
Right. My anxious friend who was obsessed with that avoidant guy, when she went on to date other people, that's what she said all the time. She's like, they're just boring. It's just like, because she didn't have the drugs.
Right. Without the games, dating is boring.
Right. It's just getting to know another human being.
Right. And I think also that's one of the traps for avoidance. You're getting into this relationship and at first it's exciting because you don't know what's going on, but then it's just Tuesday night on the couch, right? That is always what they mean when they say the spark is gone,
right?
Because they're looking for that weird crap that happened at the beginning of the relationship that's not real. The doves happen, again, at the front of the relationship. It's a hormonal reaction, and a lot of people get confused about what doves are, and they think it's love. D stands for dopamine, the feel-good hormone. O stands for oxytocin, the love and bonding hormone. V stands for vasopressin, the mood-enhancing hormone. E stands for endorphins, well-being, stress reduction hormones. And S stands for serotonin, the happiness hormone. Actual love is something that expands over time and requires patience, honesty, mutual care, and respect.
Let's play a quick game. This is called Cliff's Notes. It is, you might be an anxious attached person. If you find that you are counting other women's likes on his Facebook page, that's anxious.
Absolutely.
If you do not post about them on your Facebook page, that's avoidant.
If you find that the way that they chew peanut butter is absolutely disgusting and repellent, you might be.
If you buy 3 different kinds of peanut butter because you don't remember which one they like and you want to make sure and have the one they liked for the next time they came over, you might be anxious.
If you find yourself ignoring your own emotional cues, denying your lived experience, and doing everything you can to try to make the other person happy, you might be anxious.
If you look at every interaction as a series of wins and losses in an attempt to be the perfect person that will get the response you want out of them, you might be anxious.
If you find that they are too pushy and oppressive and they ask too much of you and want too many answers, you might be avoidant.
If you frequently compare them to partners in the past, people you know now, fictional people in your head, or celebrities, and find them wanting, you might be an avoidant.
If you feel super chill about your relationships, have a great relationship with your parents, and are generally quite boring, you might be secure. Where are you and what is your number?
So my final thoughts are, of course, these are broad strokes, but if something's happening in your friendships or your relationships or your work relationships that doesn't make sense to you, these structures could answer some of your questions.
Right. These might be at play.
Laura, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are that everyone should read the book Attached by Levine and Heller, The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. And I think also, if it doesn't feel right, take a second, take a breath, take a beat. We don't have to make decisions quickly. We can check in with our bodies and see, like, is this a survival strategy or is this actually real? Whether we're coming from the anxious end or the avoidant end, we just need to take a second and think about, why am I doing this thing? Either actively sabotaging this relationship or tolerating poor behavior or whatever. Why am I doing this thing? What is my motivation? Where does this come from?
My sister, who is a therapist, told me once that, like the written, unwritten rule of like, if you go on 3 dates with someone, that's the time where you could think about having sex with them. And some men feel like that's a law.
They think it's an unwritten law.
Like, well, 3 dates, this is when it happens. But my sister actually, I think it was 10.
My therapist said 90 days. So that was her underlying plan. I feel like, again, I don't date anymore, but I think, I just need to get to know you so that I don't get flooded with doves and I don't start moving into that weird activating strategy.
If you're waiting 90 days, what you get is, the actual person. You don't have like a sketch of a person that you fill in with your own brain, right?
Right. You're not having your whole hormone system rigged, getting hijacked. Yeah. You're actually seeing the person for who they are. You're getting to know them for who they are and figuring out whether or not this is the thing for you.
So for people who've never heard of these things, happy Googling. It's so much fun.
You could spend a lifetime doing it, really.
Spend a lifetime trying to figure this stuff out. We think about this every day. Laura, thanks for a great topic. Laura, do you have a listener review for us this week?
I absolutely do. This is a 5-star review from Metacom's Revenge. The title is So Fun. Fun, delightful, delves into necessary mental health issues that we all deal with. Thank you, Metacom's Revenge.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So that's been our show this week. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like the show, please like and subscribe and send us a nice review. Laura will read it.
Virginia, where can people reach out to you on the social medias?
Well, you can reach out to me personally. You can find me at PhDAttached. My Instagram is @PhDAttached. And if you want to ask us podcast-related question, please write us at hello@mysistersthetherapist.com. And if you're thinking of just DMing me with whatever you want to say, write it to the email because Laura really likes getting email.
I love email. I'm addicted to email.
Help her with her addiction. Laura, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at lauraryan.org. They can also find me on my TikTok, which is currently blowing up.
Laura's had some very hot properties on the TikTok this week.
We're nearly to 300 followers. Yes, you can find me on TikTok. I am Laura Ryan. You can find me at lauraryan.org. And if you want to hire us and give us lots of money to do your workshop or your weekend to help you with your professional training, you can email us at hireus@mysistersthetherapist.com.
In closing,
In the elusive
4 words of Billy Ray Valentine.
We can make it, baby. Me
And you.
and you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.